Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I never thought a single text message from my neighbor would end up changing the entire direction of my life. But that's exactly what happened. And honestly, even now, it still feels unreal when I think back to how it all started. At the time, my life was painfully predictable. Wake up early, rush to work, come home tired, eat something random, scroll my phone, sleep, repeat. No excitement, no real connection, just days blending into each other like copies of the same page. I had gone through a rough breakup about a year earlier, and ever since then, I'd built this quiet wall around myself. Not because I wanted to be alone forever, but because disappointment had become familiar, and familiar things feel safer than hope. My neighbor, Mark, was the complete opposite of me. Loud, social, always joking, always poking his head into other people's business. We lived in the same apartment building, and somehow he knew everyone. He was the kind of guy who'd borrowed your charger and return it 3 weeks later with a smile like nothing happened. We weren't close friends, but we talked often enough in the hallway, in the parking lot, or by the mailboxes. He knew I was single. He never let me forget it. One evening, as I was unlocking my door, Mark leaned against the railing with that familiar grin and said, "Man, I've got someone you have to meet." I laughed it off immediately. I'd heard that line before, and it never ended well. I told him I wasn't interested. He rolled his eyes and said it was just for fun, a joke date, nothing serious. "You'll thank me later," he said, pointing at me like he already knew the future. I shook my head, went inside, and thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to a message from an unknown number. It said something like, "Hey, Mark said you'd meet me for coffee today. Hope that's okay." I stared at my phone in disbelief. My first reaction was annoyance. My neighbor had actually gone ahead and set this up without my permission. I almost texted back to cancel immediately. My fingers hovered over the screen, ready to shut it down before it even started. But then I noticed the small details. The message wasn't pushy. It wasn't awkward. It felt warm, polite, human. I don't know why, but something in me hesitated. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was just the fact that I had nothing to lose. I replied, telling her I'd be free for a short coffee. Nothing more. We agreed to meet at a small cafe, not far from the building. As I got ready, I kept telling myself this was just a favor, a quick meet, a funny story I'd laugh about later. I wasn't nervous, or at least, that's what I told myself. But when I walked into the cafe and scanned the room, my chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. She was sitting near the window, sunlight hitting her face, stirring her coffee slowly, as if she wasn't in a rush at all. When our eyes met, she smiled, not a forced polite smile, but one that reached her eyes. In that instant, something shifted. It's hard to explain without sounding dramatic, but it felt like the noise in my head suddenly went quiet. She stood up to greet me, and the first thing I noticed wasn't her looks, though she was beautiful in a natural, effortless way. It was her presence. She made the space feel calm. We sat down, exchanged awkward introductions, and joked about how ridiculous Mark was for setting this up. That shared laughter broke the ice instantly. The conversation flowed in a way I hadn't experienced in years. We talked about simple things at first. Work, favorite foods, random childhood memories. Then deeper topics started to slip in naturally. Fears, regrets, dreams we'd buried because life got in the way. I found myself opening up without even realizing it. Normally, I guarded my words carefully, but with her, it felt safe to be honest. An hour passed, then another. At some point, the coffee cups were empty, but neither of us moved. The cafe grew louder as more people came in, but it felt like we were in our own bubble. When she laughed, it didn't feel like small talk laughter. It felt real. And when she listened, she truly listened, not just waiting for her turn to speak. She told me about how she'd moved to the city to start over, how she'd been through her own heartbreaks, how she was tired of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Every word felt familiar, like she was saying things I'd felt but never said out loud. I realized I hadn't checked my phone once. For someone who usually watched the clock on dates, that alone was shocking. Eventually, reality crept back in. We both had places to be. As we stood outside the cafe, there was this brief, awkward pause. The kind where neither person wants the moment to end but doesn't know how to say it. She smiled and said she'd had a really nice time. I said the same, probably too quickly. We exchanged numbers, even though we technically already had each other's contact. When she walked away, I watched her go, feeling something unfamiliar bubbling up inside me. Hope. Over the next few days, we texted constantly. Not in that forced, overthinking way, but naturally. Good morning messages turned into late-night conversations. We shared songs, jokes, random thoughts. I found myself looking forward to my phone lighting up again. Work felt lighter. Even the city seemed different, like colors were brighter somehow. We went on more dates, walks through quiet streets, late dinners where we lost track of time, moments where silence felt just as comfortable as talking. The more I got to know her, the more I realized this wasn't just attraction. It was connection, the kind that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. One night, as we sat on a bench overlooking the city lights, She asked me why I'd agreed to meet her in the first place. I laughed and told her the truth. That I almost canceled. That I was tired of disappointment. She nodded, saying she felt the same before that first message. We both admitted that if it weren't for Mark's ridiculous joke, our paths might never have crossed. That thought hit me hard. How many moments had I missed before because I said no too quickly? How many opportunities had I brushed off because I was afraid of getting hurt again? Meeting her forced me to confront the walls I'd built around myself. Slowly, without even trying, she was helping me tear them down. My neighbor, of course, took full credit when he saw us together weeks later. He laughed and said he told me so. For once, I couldn't even be annoyed. I thanked him genuinely, because what started as a joke had turned into something real, something meaningful. As months passed, my life began to change in ways I didn't expect. I became more open, more present. I started dreaming again, not just about relationships, but about life in general. She encouraged me to pursue things I'd put off for years. I did the same for her. We grew, not just together, but as individuals. There were challenges, of course. No relationship is perfect. We had disagreements, misunderstandings, moments of doubt, but the difference was how we handled them. We talked, we listened, we chose each other, again and again. That choice made all the difference. Looking back now, it's crazy to think that the best thing that ever happened to me started with an unwanted setup and a message from a stranger. If you'd told me back then that a joke date would lead to love, growth, and a completely new outlook on life, I would have laughed in your face. But life has a strange sense of humor. Sometimes, the moments we resist the most are the ones that change us forever. Sometimes, the people we meet by accident are exactly who we need. And sometimes, saying yes to something unexpected is the first step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. So if you're watching this right now, stuck in a routine, afraid to open up, convinced that nothing good comes from taking chances, let me tell you this. I was there, and one small, reluctant yes changed everything. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you even a little, you know what to do. And who knows, maybe the next unexpected invitation you get won't be a joke at all.